So you're consistently aligning your whole program around this. It's very interesting. So taking it further down from your annual training programs and session plans, when it comes to individual players, do you have specific programs that you design based on their capabilities, talent?
Yes, well, I think it's very important that, as I said, that you have specific training plans for players. So, in that regard, I think it's very important that you sit down with the player, have like goals for the season. But it depends what the player wants, because we have to come to an agreement. Okay, this is what we need to work on. So, getting the consent of the player is a very important factor in this, as well as getting the confidence of the player. The trust in you. I think that has to be built over a time period. But I think if you're a good coach, if you can reason out things with the player, I'm sure he will respond to you positively. So those are I think that's a very important area. And another thing that I would like to add on to it would be, it has to be structured and sequential. You should know where the player is at the right moment and where you and the player needs to be in the next 6 months or 1 year. So it has to be structured and sequential, and I think that's how you rewards or get the best out of the players.
Okay. And as part of the design of the program, how do you integrate the psychology aspect of the game and physical conditioning side of the game? How do you get about doing in part of your programs?
Yeah, I think psychological aspect of the game is something that most of us don't address. That we always say 75% of the game is played in your head, but we never do a lot of drills or things to really develop the mind. I think it's very important. Again, I break it down to the 3 seasons. What should be done off season? Things like profiling, going back to your evaluate yourself, what you have done before, and have a plan. Okay, whether you should know whether you have failed or you have succeeded, and take it forward from there. And in aspect the strength and conditioning off season, I think that's where bulk of the work has to be done. At the same time, you should know the player needs a break as well. So the program has to be a real balanced one. And when it comes to pre-season, it's mostly psychological aspect of it would be like developing the perceptual awareness of the player, game plan, and things like that, so he knows what needs to be done in season, getting the player ready for that in season. And in strength and conditioning, I think that's where you start your aerobic base and like progress into the shorter anaerobic base. And when you look at the in season, I think the better players, psychologically strong players, whether they have any flaws in their technique or not, they sort of try to adapt themselves and get into habits and routines and work it from there. And in season is a time where you need to keep your strength and conditioning at a reasonable level. You can't drop that part.
Interesting. I think as part of coaching, today, considering the fact of the competitiveness of the game, do you use a lot of technology today in terms of for your decisions, for analyzing the game? What kind of technology strategy do you have in mind?
Well, there are a lot of softwares, coaching softwares, which is available in game, and it's very important that you do a lot of analyzing with the players, but not to the extent of paralyzing the player.
Okay.
So you have to have a balance there. So it's good to analyze, but shouldn't give the player too much information where he would be confused. So you need to select really what you need to give the player. And yes, I use a lot of technology in my coaching.
Do you video the matches usually and play back?
Yes, not only matches, but even training sessions, we sort of video them when they're batting or bowling, and have special sessions in replaying them and working with them, especially when it comes to remedial stages of the season. So a lot of remedial stuff is done after looking at there, because it's always good for the player to look at himself. What sort of, and another thing that I do, especially in videoing, is like give positive reinforcement rather than looking at the negatives, because then you're really not, if you're not put into the right practice.
You talked about one thing which intrigues me quite a lot is that we find Sri Lanka has a lot of very unorthodox players, and we seem to constantly debate on whether this is in product of coaching or no coaching. How do you hold views on these kinds of talent that have been preserved yet, but molded? What's your views on this? And do you have a process of encouraging innovation within the game?
Yes, as I said in my philosophy, individuality is very, very important in the game. A, B and C won't be the same. So it's important that as coaches you know that players are going to be different and they have to be handled in different ways. The issues have to be handled in different ways. I like, as I said, innovations, unorthodoxy I like in the game. I think that's the beauty of cricket. And we have to encourage that. We shouldn't kill that natural instinct in the player. But then we have to look at the fact that he's, especially if he's a fast bowler or even a spinner, if it's going to physically handicap him, maybe we have to intervene and do some adjustments, but not major ones. I think it's important that those originalities be in a natural game of play.
Very interesting, and I think you spend a lot of time. It's been a very illuminating experience for me in listening to what you have to say. Is there anything that you need to add on in terms of like the challenges that today you face as a Sri Lankan coach? Sometimes the Western countries have opportunity in terms of the resource strengths, having the technology in place. Do you have that kind of challenges in working in Sri Lanka on coaching processes? Do you have?
Yes, Stefan, definitely. I mean, being out of this country, looking at other structures and coming back and working in our country, of course there are a lot of constraints, and I think that's what I like about our coaches and our players. We don't have a lot of resources. I mean, I recall when I went for the level 3, they were talking about, I do a premier club in Sri Lanka, and when I told them that we don't have a ground of our own, we just practice on a side wicket or on a concrete wicket twice a week, and we have national players in our side. They were really surprised. But I think we are very resilient and we are very hard, I would say. And yes, we don't have the resources, but still we have been able to win a World Cup and develop champion players. And I'm sure we will continue to do with our part with our limited resources.
Harsha, just one last question. Like any good coach, many coaches have themes that they work on. Do you have something that is very special to you?
Yes, sorry Stefan, I have a theme, and my theme is what you reap is what you sow.
What you reap is what you sow. Right. So simple, straightforward, and it means a lot.
That's right.
Harsha, time's caught up on us, and I'd like to continue this discussion. How I was saying that fulfilling these requirements. I think you got a great amount of content in what you presented, and it's been very, very educating. And maybe, hopefully, future we can catch up more time in trying to learn a little bit more on what your insights of the game. Thank you very much, and all the very best for the assignment. Good luck.